On Yen Moli's side, the 3,000 guards lost only 500 people. By contrast, the remaining 2,500 people were enough to swallow up the bones of more than 100 people on Yen Beiqing's side. Mo Ling's smell speech almost immediately asked, "Lord, then you how? You just have to obey my king's orders." Yen North City does not answer. The face has no expression of enunciation. Yen Zhenxuan was also shocked by Yen Beiqing's words. He never thought that Yen Beiqing had to protect him in this kind of environment. His heart was full of mixed feelings for a moment. "Brother Wu Huang, why do you have to be like this? Although I didn't have a deep friendship with you since I was a child, I will never leave even if I die." Qinya also went forward with red eyes. "Prince, the princess can't live without you. If there is no other way, the maidservant would rather die than let you suffer here. Let's not let the future little prince and princess lose their father." Mo Shanghua's advice was still in her ears. She forbeared, and then swallowed it for the time being. Mo Ling's body is a little stiff for a while, and then comes forward to kneel down on one knee. "My subordinates are incompetent. I'm afraid I won't take this responsibility. Please leave my subordinates by your side for the last fight." Yen Beiqing's face was as cold as iron. His thin lips were slightly pursed, but he could not say anything tough. He was lonely and ill-fated when he was a child. He never enjoyed family friendship. Except for his subordinates and Mo Shanghua, no one has ever lived with him. The reason why he protected Yen Zhenxuan was that the covenant was in front of him and he had no other feelings. But that's why they treat each other so sincerely. Yen Zhenxuan looked at Yen Beiqing, who had already hesitated. His eyes and eyebrows were full of firmness. In such an embarrassing situation, he still said, "All the people in the prince's palace listen to the order. If at the last moment, they don't have to care about my life or death. They just escort the 5th emperor's younger brother to leave safely." Yen Zhenxuan's people came in from the outside, but now there are only a dozen people left. The rest of them died outside before they rushed in. Even so, Yen Zhenxuan would rather fight to the last moment. This time, it was Yen Beiqing's turn to be shocked in his heart. His whole face was tense, and he pursed his lips without opening his mouth. Half handsome and half charming, scarlet face above the dim light, as evil as terror, especially in those deep black eyes. It seems that something is slowly surging brewing. "Your Highness, do you want to take them directly?" General Chen and Yen Moli were surrounded by the imperial guards, standing in the courtyard, looking down respectfully. No, it's the last moment, but Yen Moli shakes his head at this time, and a subtle radiance rises slowly on one side of his lips. He orders people to set fire. General Chen turned his eyes and sighed. "Your Highness, King Yu, secretly sent troops into the city, provoked civil strife among the people in the city and intended to rebel. After being found, he burned himself to death. The 13 princes were bewitched by King Yu and fell into the sea of fire together. Your Highness, you are so wise." The radiance of Yen Mo's lips became bigger and bigger, and the last uneasiness in his heart seemed to dissipate with this command. In addition to the joy of being a winner, he had already seen him sitting high on the throne. However, the pride in his eyes did not last long. The guards took the torches and prepared to set fire directly. But at this time, they did not know where to shoot thousands of arrows straight into the courtyard. The soldiers could not defend themselves. For a moment, most of the people in the courtyard fell to the ground. Even General Chen didn't expect it. He just blocked the arrow for himself, but he was caught off guard by an arrow on his arm. "Your Highness, quickly withdraw into the corridor." Yen Mo Lifang's face, which had just turned clear, was gloomy again. He dodged and quickly retreated into the corridor. At the moment, the soldiers waiting in the outer courtyard also broke in one after another when they heard the movement in the courtyard. However, just after entering the courtyard, they were all killed by random arrows. The arrow clearly came down from the sky. If it was to be shot, it must be on the wall of the palace. But the soldiers who had been guarding the outer courtyard didn't feel any intruders. At the moment, they were in a mess. "Brother Beiqing, I've come to save you." When the people in the inner hall were confused, they heard a very romantic man's voice outside the courtyard. It was at this moment that they were still romantic and lazy. Yen Mo Li also heard of this life and could not help looking up. Sure enough, he saw that Hua Qianlu was standing on the roof of the main hall with both positive and negative hands. On his side, there were a group of neat women in black, squatting on the eaves with bows and arrows in their hands and arrow baskets on their backs. They were beautiful but extremely cold. These are the real strength of Qinghuan Pavilion. Lord of Qinghuan Pavilion? After Yen Moli saw Hua Qianlu's face clearly, Junyan suddenly turned black and sneered. Just with you want to fight my 2,000 troops? Hui Qianlusi was not angry, and the smile from the corner of her lips was wanton. Tut tut, after all, I'm the richest businessman in the world. Don't look down on me, Your Highness King Ling. No one, but I still have money. In the inner hall of Yanbei City, at the moment, the deep and unpredictable eyes suddenly burst out a cloud of color. Maureen. Thin lips slightly pick, Mo Ling slightly let go of Qinya, go to the door. The sword in the hand suddenly flew towards the corridor in the hospital. Yen Moli's pupil suddenly shrinks, and he quickly backs away. The long sword stabs into the ground in front of him, half of which is not on the ground. In Yen Mo's fierce play, he was surprised and angry. Before he could speak, he saw the flowers and willows standing on the roof suddenly and gently smile, and all the people on the roof withdrew. Yen North City also at this time quickly turn around, speak extremely fast command, all follow me. Then he took the lead to enter the room through the corner door. Yen Zhenxuan was puzzled, but seeing Yen Beiqing's strategy, he relaxed a little and came forward to keep up. As soon as Mo Ling turns around, he grabs Qin Ya's wrist and pulls him to follow. And at that time, Yen Emoli heart suddenly violent beat for a while, complexion big change, not good, quickly out. As soon as the words came to an end, there was a violent explosion in the crowded corridor. Boom, boom, boom. There were several violent blasts, followed by one after another screams. What's more terrifying is that the impact of the explosion is huge, and the whole corridor collapses with the roar, crushing all the people who are crowded under the corridor to avoid the arrow in the ruins. At the same time, more than 200 people who surrounded King Yu's mansion were killed by the people in black before they could think about the movement in the mansion. There are more than 200 people in black this time. There are about 300 men and 200 women in black this time. Every one of them is ruthless, and their martial arts are clean and neat. But after a while, all the people outside the government have been solved. The people in the mansion are worried about the scream outside the mansion and the scream inside the founder hall. At the moment, they are all in a panic. But don't want to, just at this time, those people in black quickly climbed up the courtyard wall. The South Crane body is in among them, the vision coldly looks at the bottom of forbid guard, the voice coldly utters a word, kill. The people in black were ordered to take down their bows and arrows and shoot all the guards in the courtyard. The guards were unprepared, and now they were defeated by the foreign cooperation. There were less than 2,000 people left. They had no fighting back, and there were countless casualties. It took tens of thousands of arrows to stop. Before some lucky survivors could get up, all the people in black jumped down, put away their bows and arrows, and soon surrounded the remaining soldiers. The number of disabled soldiers is only a few hundred now. They are all seriously injured and no longer have the ability to resist. However, few people in black are injured and their faces are cold. It seems that as long as they don't obey, they will directly reap their lives. At this time, because of the big aftershock of the explosion, the inner hall also had some turbulence. The beams of the house cracked, and the bricks and tiles rolled with gravel suddenly collapsed. In a moment, the dust was flying. On the corridor at that time, Yen Moli was pressed down by a pile of corpses. He tried hard to remove these corpses and climb out of them. However, the corpses he pushed away were not complete. They were all short of arms and legs, and none of them was intact. At the last moment, it was these soldiers who tried their best to protect Yen Moli regardless of their own safety. As a result, although Yen Moli was covered with blood and dust in his hair, he had no serious injuries and could walk easily. However, when he crawled out of the ruins, the situation in the hospital had changed greatly. His face suddenly became sinister, and his eyes seemed to be filled with great anger and a deep frustration. Just one step, just one step. His eyes were full of unwilling color, and he could not help biting his teeth and biting his words. He had never seen the remains of the guard who blocked his last fatal blow in the ruins. At this time, a chill suddenly came from the neck. Looking down, it was a long sword with cold light on the neck. Yen Beiqing, holding a long sword, glared at Yen Moli, who was not stable and unwilling at the moment. His eyes were cold as a pool. "You lost." Just 3 words, but it seems to poke in Yen Moli's pain. He clenched his fist, held back the anger in his heart. "Those were you to let me relax. In fact, you've already designed everything, just waiting for me to throw myself into the net and ask for credit from my father. You know too late." Yen Beiqing's eyebrows and eyes remained unchanged, and his lips were full of sarcasm. "You've done everything, but you've lost too much arrogance." Hua Qianlu put his hand on Yen Beiqing's shoulder and looked at Yen Moli, who was in a mess. He made up his sword impolitely. "What you know is too late. What, arrogant and conceited, according to my son, it is clear that he is too stupid." Yen Moli's eyes were red with anger, but he couldn't move because of the sharp blade between his neck. He just said, Okay, but you forget, Yenbei City, the imperial palace is in our hands now. As long as your father gives the imperial edict, you are the anti-thief, and I, of course, the crown prince." Thinking of this, he couldn't help but evoke a bloodthirsty color in his eyes, and the corner of his lips was crazy. "The palace is controlled by the Queen Mother and the East Marquis. It's how you control me now. The situation has long been decided. By the way, and General Lin, now, she should also go to the foot of the imperial city." Yen Zhenxuan looked at all this in silence. Seeing that Yen Moli said so, he spoke slowly. "Second brother, there is not only the queen in the palace." Yen Mo Li's pupil shrank and his body moved. "What do you mean by that?" Hua Qianlu said with a smile, "It's literally, of course. By the way, there's General Lin who forgot to tell you that he's still in northern Xinjiang. It's impossible for him to come here for a month. As for the palace." Speaking of this, she smiles and shows her white teeth. "Don't worry, General Zhao will go to calm the civil strife." Yen Moli's face changed completely. He forced his calm handsome face to spasm uncontrollably and roared, "You fart! Don't think you can defeat me in this way. I tell you I can never lose." Yen Zhenxuan closed his eyes slightly, and a sigh flashed in his eyes. Yen Beiqing's eyes looked coldly at Yen Moli, and the words from his thin lips were like ice. "Yen Moli, it's all over." As he said that, his sword deviated a little, and he was about to be taken down by a worker. However, he suddenly seized the chance, and then took a big knife on the ground with his toes. He cut at Yen Beiqing with red eyes. Yen Beiqing reacted very quickly to block with a long sword. Chong, and Chong, the sound of weapon collision aroused Yen Moli's indignation, and he cut at Yen Beiqing more fiercely. In terms of martial arts, Yen Beiqing is slightly better than Yen Moli. However, Yen Moli has made a crazy attack at this time. For a moment he is playing with Yen Beiqing, and it is difficult to decide whether to win or not. Yen Zhenxuan looked at the anxious, eyebrows gradually twist up. One side of the flower willow is smile to stop is about to come forward of Mo Ling. "Don't interfere, this is your master's own thing." Mo Ling seems to have something else to say, but Qinya suddenly grabbed his hand and shook his head slightly. "Brother Mo, you still have injuries." Maureen some stiff pause steps, silent retreat back. At that time, because of the passage of time, coupled with physical exertion, Yen Beiqing and Yen Moli had gradually separated. As soon as the sword in Yen Beiqing's hand was turned over and lightly picked, Yen Moli's sword was directly picked to the ground, and the victory was divided. Before Hua Qianlu had time to say hello to Yen Beiqing, he saw that Yen Moli, who had lost his sword, was crazy. He rushed up again with his red eyes. The dirty palm, however, seemed to emit a few threads of black gas, and the speed increased several times. In a blink of an eye, he came to Yen Beiqing. The fight, Yenbei City in the fight up actually had a bit of difficulty. Yen Emoli hands of the black gas has expanded a bit, if not lingering in his palm around. The black spirit seemed to have the power to bewitch people. It made Yen Beicheng feel a little trance for a moment. It was just such a trance. Yen Moli slapped his hand on his chest. Yen Beicheng stepped back a few steps, his chest was full of qi and blood, his lips were full of blood, and his eyes were a little black. Yen Moli seems to be completely crazy at this time. He picks up the long sword on the ground and greets Yen Beicheng again. Naturally, Yen Beicheng will not shrink back and greets Yen Beicheng again. It's just that this time he obviously has a hard time. When he sees a knife, he will cut it at his neck. It's too late for Yen Zhenchuan. At this time, a cold light flashed quickly in the air. Yen Emoli's action slightly stopped. Then he saw a thin and delicate figure darting up, and his body appeared behind Yen Moli like a ghost. He stabbed Yen Moli's shoulder with a sword, and the body of the sword went through his shoulder directly. Yen Beicheng's whole body pressure suddenly reduced, his body slightly shook, his mouth was a burst of fishy sweetness, and his lips were dyed crimson. Mo Shanghua immediately put down his sword and rushed forward. Hua Qianlu and Yen Zhenchuan also came forward at the first time, holding Yen Beicheng left and right. Mo Shanghua came forward and caressed his cheek carefully. His eyes suddenly became sour. He could not help but let his tears fall down. Yen Beicheng, what's the matter with you? Do you want to be tight? I'll show you now. Said, involuntarily to pull his wrist. Yen Beicheng pulled his wrist back, grinned at her and said, "It's okay. It's just some internal injuries. Just take care of it for a few days." Said, as if to prove the general, two arms from Flower Willow and Yen Zhenchuan hands out, stand upright. You see, it really doesn't matter. Now there are other things to do, let's go to work first, doing other things. Mo Shanghua looks at Yen Beicheng, as if to make sure that what he says is true or false. But Yen Beicheng looked left and right, but he didn't look at her. He held him in one hand and walked forward to Yen Moli. Tie him down and take him down. Just now Yen Moli, who was still clamoring and unwilling, was already in a coma and fell on the ground. He didn't know why, so he was dragged down by Hua Qianlu. After ordering this matter, he raised his hand to wipe the blood on his lips and looked at Zhao Wei, who was in armor and shocked. "General Zhao, this place has been dealt with. Let's go to the palace now." Zhao Weigang was still surprised at the situation here, and saw that Yen Beicheng was seriously injured, but he could deal with things calmly with such a changeable face. He was completely convinced, yes. This time, he listened from the bottom of his heart. Although Hua Qianlu and Yen Zhenchuan only met each other, they didn't ask more about Yen Beicheng's injury. The South Crane also entered the inner courtyard at the moment, didn't notice the difference of Yen Beicheng, only recovered his life towards him, then spontaneously stood beside Hua Qianlu. When all the people went out, the whole palace was empty, and embarrassed figures struggled to climb out of the ruins. General Chen is no more fierce than Yen Mo, and there are several pro-guards who are willing to fight to protect each other. They are lucky to be able to save their lives. At this time he was seriously injured in one leg, stumbled out, found an exit, and walked out slowly step by step. At that time, the Imperial Palace was also on guard against killing. All of a sudden, wearing armor and white hair, Dong Linhao entered Cunning Palace in a hurry. As soon as Queen Lin saw that the Marquis was coming, she immediately went forward to meet him. What she saw was not the joy she imagined. Her heart suddenly jumped. "Father, why do you have such an expression? What's the matter?" At this moment, the Eastern Marquis did not care about the courtesies of the monarchs and ministers. His old face was full of anxiety and gloom. The palace gate was suddenly forcibly occupied by the forbidden guards, and Zhao Wei was the leader. The news from King Yu's mansion is now broken and can't be contacted. What? Empress Lin's face was full of disbelief, with the same anxiety on her face. How could it be so? Isn't Zhao Wei obediently guarding the city gate? Why did he suddenly bring troops to attack the palace? Is he crazy? Besides, there's my brother. Why hasn't my brother come yet? Dong Linho's face sank completely and he said, the leaders are Yen Beiqing and Yen Zhenxuan. Now your brother has no news. Your Royal Highness Ling. I'm afraid it won't be. Empress Lin faltered at her feet, nearly fell to the ground, her cheeks were pale. How could it be like this? How could it be like this? Li Er, what's the matter with Li Er? What's the situation like now? Dong Linho shook his head with a heavy face. I've said that. Now everything is not clear. Empress Lin felt soft all over, and even felt that her head was heavy and her feet were light. Her eyes were full of confusion. Father, what should I do now? If they beat them in, all this will be over. I have come to tell you about it. Dong Linhao suddenly stepped forward, holding Empress Lin's shoulder tightly in both hands. Listen, now find someone to release the Imperial Dr. Lu, and let him save your majesty. Then he orders the Imperial Guards to fight to death. When your majesty wakes up, he says that Yen Beiqing intends to rebel and win the throne. Empress Lin's eyes suddenly brightened, just like catching the last straw. She suddenly stood up. I'm going now. Then, regardless of her queen's manners, she stood up in a hurry and walked out. Looking at Empress Lin's back in a hurry, the Eastern Marquis also took out his sword and went to the most fierce place with the Imperial Guards. Zhao Wei had a large number of people. 5,000 soldiers, together with Yen Beiqing and Hua Qinliu's men, all existed as one block and 10. The 3,000 Imperial Guards in the palace couldn't last long, so they had retreated to the gate of Yangxin Hall, taking Yangxin Hall as the center, making the final resistance. King Yu, Prince 13, you are plotting a rebellion. Dong Linhao was guarded in the center by the Imperial Guards, and angrily yelled to Yen Zhenxuan in Yanbei City, Your Royal Highness Ling Wang sealed the inscription and went to exterminate the anti-thief. You fight together, but you also hurt Your Royal Highness Ling Wang seriously. Now you are attacking the palace again. You are conspiring. Both Yen Beiqing and Yen Zhenxuan are riding on the horse, looking coldly at the angry East Marquis. As soon as Yen Beiqing wanted to open his mouth, he felt the qi and blood in his chest surging, and there was a smell of fishy sweetness in his throat. He pressed his lips tightly and forced down the fishy sweetness that had reached his throat. Yen Zhenxuan's gentle temperament is doomed to be unable to shout out in such a battle. And the most eloquent Flower Willow and South Crane do not know where to go at the moment, not in them. As a result, Emo Shanghua raised her voice with her internal power, and said impolitely, Dong Linho is so old that she has the cheek to confuse black and white here? Who in the end directed and acted by himself in an attempt to take advantage of this incident and remove King Yu and the 13 princes together? Fortunately, he inherited the throne, and the discerning people will naturally know at a glance. He pointed to his nose and scolded him for being cheeky. Facing Ho in the east, he couldn't hold on to his old face. He held back his anger and said, Nonsense. It is clear that you have bewitched the people, intended to rebel and seek the throne. Emo Shanghua coldly raised the corner of his lips, and the irony in his eyes was not concealed. Facing the Marquis in the east, Yen Moli has been captured, and all your affairs have been told by him. Now your majesty is controlled by you in the palace, and you are in a coma. You have no way to explain. Dong Linhao said that he couldn't help but see the flowers on the street. His wrinkled face turned red. He simply looked over the flowers and looked at Zhao Wei behind her. General Zhao, you have always been regarded by your majesty as a bodyguard. Now do you believe this woman's nonsense? Don't forget that your Zhao family is full of martyrs. You are the third generation here. If you are bewitched for a while and your Zhao family's Qingyu boxing is destroyed in your hands, your grandfather will not be able to die. Smell speech, Zhao Wei holding the reins of the hand tight. Turn eyes forget to spend one eye, eyes light micro flash. Emo Shanhua's sight suddenly cooled down, and the corner of his lips raised a cold radiance. You are facing the Marquis in the east. You want to bewitch people in front of the battle because you are weak. It's really mean. After a pause, she turned her eyes and looked at Zhao Wei. General Zhao, you can doubt my intentions, but please think carefully. If I say anything to you, if there is a false word I say, It is your majesty who is standing here at the moment to question harshly. Zhao Wei looked a little ashamed and lowered his head. It was the last general who was stupid. He was almost instigated before the battle. Yanbei City didn't turn his eyes, but his voice was calm and slightly cold. General Zhao, it's a taboo in the army to turn around before the war. Zhao Wei was more and more ashamed. He clasped his hands and said in a stuffy voice, I'll be ashamed. I won't be instigated. Mo Shanghua coldly looked at Dong Linho, who was black again. He deliberately picked his lips and laughed. Dong Linho, you are at this age, but you have to work for your daughter, Empress Lin. If you don't say that, now all the people in the family have to bear the accusation of treason. It's you who shame your ancestors and let your children and grandchildren bear the consequences for you. After a pause, she said with red lips, the crime of treason should be punished. The old and drooping eyelids of the Eastern Marquis suddenly shook. Don't talk nonsense to confuse black and white. The flowers on the street sneer at the corners of their lips, not saying much. When Yan Beiqing saw this, he pressed down his blood and said in a cold voice, if you are a marquis in the East, if you give up now, your descendants may have a chance to live. It's just a thief who threatens me like this. I've been on the battlefield for more than 10 years, and I've never been afraid of anyone. I'll never listen to you. Dong Linhao killed Yan Beiqing and others. They are anti-thieves. They will not let go anyway. At this time, the Yangxin Hall is also in a panic. Lu Wang and others knelt shivering in the outer hall, and the voice of cry in front of the door of Yangxin Hall came from their ears. The tense and bitter atmosphere seemed to have passed through several layers of walls and reached here, which made Lu Wang swallow his mouth. God, he had never seen such a battle in the palace for most of his life. It really killed him. But Empress Lin in the hall couldn't help smashing a teacup directly on Lu Zhang's shoulder. Her eyes were red and she said in a cold voice, what's the matter with you? Aren't you super skilled? How can your majesty not be cured? Although Beirongdi's illness was caused by her hands and feet, Lu Yui, who gave her the prescription, had no ability to cure it. That's all right. Unexpectedly, even Lu Zheng couldn't help it. The situation outside the hall was whispered to her by the palace maid every moment. Thinking of this, she was more and more anxious. She grabbed Lu Zheng's collar and threatened, if you can't cure your majesty, the palace will kill you immediately. After all, Empress Lin is a woman. Even so, she can't make Lu Zheng stand on tiptoe, even higher than Empress Lin. He glanced down at Empress Lin's hand, and his voice was still gentle. Empress, calm down. I'm not an immortal. Your Majesty's body has been in deficit for a long time. Once you fall down, it will come true that you are as sick as a mountain. You can't go back to heaven anymore. Empress Lin let go of Lu Zheng's hand. She stepped back 2 steps in a trance. Fortunately, the female official helped her, but she didn't fall down. How can it be? Are you King Yu's person? You have no intention at all. Lu Zheng is standing with his hands down. His eyes are gentle. He is just a weak scholar. Now he is not in a panic in front of the queen who is close to collapse. The queen's nerves are stimulated at the moment. She wants to have a rest in the future. Empress Lin was stimulated by Lu Zheng's words, and she said coldly, go away. Yes. Lu Zheng nodded slightly and retreated to the outer hall. Turning to the extreme, he turned his eyes and looked at Baorong Emperor, who was lying on the bed with a faint breath. There was a faint light in his eyes. Empress Lin naturally didn't notice that she was weak all over at the moment. Only with the support of the female officer could she barely stop. Did you just go out to see it again? The female official nodded, and her face was white. Empress Lin took a deep breath and tried to stand firm. What's the situation now? The female official hesitated for a long time, then said in a soft voice, now, the Yangxin Hall has been surrounded. His Royal Highness Yu and the 13 princes are in charge, and His Royal Highness Ling is not seen. Empress Lin's body suddenly softened, and even the female officials struggled to hold her, and she almost fell to the ground with her. Nyang, you should take care of yourself. If it's a big deal, we'll kill you. It's the rebellion of King Yu. We'll be fine. The female official has been with Empress Lin for decades. Now, seeing her like this, she can't bear it. She has to endure the fear in her heart, and her eyes are red and comforting. Empress Lin shook her head in despair and pulled her arm out of the female officer's hand. Then she knelt down on the ground slowly. Evil causes have been planted, and things have come to such a state that there is no room for turning around. If Emperor Baorong can't wake up, even if she's killing Yan Beiqing, what's the matter? Emperor Baorong's death and Yan Moli's being arrested again. Isn't it time for King Yu or Yan Senchuan? At that time, how to conclude the matter is no longer what she can tell. Think of here, Empress Lin, sad from the heart, refused the female official's help, some embarrassed to climb to Baorong Emperor's collapse. Looking at Baorong Emperor's eyes closed and her face pale, she could not help holding the brocade quilt on Baorong Emperor's body. Your Majesty, in fact, you have nothing to do. You are deceiving me, aren't you? You get up quickly, don't cheat me, said. She tightly grasped the hand of brocade quilt and grasped the skirt of Baorong Emperor again. Your Majesty, your sons are going to attack now. If you don't get up again, the kingdom of God will change. Qin Kingdom will take advantage of the opportunity. The whole kingdom of God will not be protected. In this way, Baorong Emperor, who was lying on the bed, still had no reaction. He closed his eyes peacefully, his face seemed to be a little old, and his forehead raised a little deeper. Looking at Baorong Emperor's old face, Empress Lin couldn't help stroking Baorong Emperor's forehead. Her voice was desperate and slightly resentful. I've followed you all my life. My only wish is to let Li Er sit on the throne. If you didn't favor the 13th prince, how could things come to this place? Thinking of this, Empress Lin said with a sad smile, since this is the case, why don't you die with your concubine? In this way, we can be regarded as living in the same bed and dying in the same coffin. With that, a pair of her well-maintained hands suddenly moved down, trembling, and moved to Baorongdi's neck. She closed her eyes and tried to pinch them down. At that time, only Empress Lin and her close female officials were in the palace. Seeing that Empress Lin was so crazy, the official was so scared that she cried out, "Empress can't do it." Empress Lin's hands trembled slightly, but her strength didn't slacken. Instead, she bit her teeth and went on. I never thought that as soon as I used my strength, I was tightly grasped by a pair of powerful hands. Baorong Emperor, who had been lying safely for a day, suddenly opened his eyes and looked at Empress Lin's eyes full of fierce. Empress Lin trembled all over and opened her eyes instantly. What she saw was Emperor Baorong's angry and fierce eyes. Empress Lin felt both shock and joy in her heart. But the next second, she could see her situation clearly. She was so weak that she almost fainted on the spot. Come on. Lu Wang. Baorong Emperor tightly grasped Empress Lin's hand with one hand and sat up with the other hand. He cried aloud, a little tired in his voice. Lu Wang, who had been kneeling in the outer hall, suddenly heard the voice of Emperor Baorong. He was very smart. He didn't care about the presence of Empress Lin. He quickly got up and ran in. Kneeling in front of the bed, he even slipped forward because of his speed. Empress Lin's hand was grasped by Emperor Baorong, and she could not kneel down, but her whole body was soft, and she could not speak with trembling lips. Baorong Emperor loose tightly grasped the hand of Empress Lin. Empress Lin was weak, at the moment can't control, directly fell on the ground. Zhu Chai all over the head fell a few. The woman officer had been so scared that she knelt on the ground and shivered that she didn't have time to help Empress Lin. It's all over. Empress Lin was in complete despair, and tears rolled down her eyes. The awakening of Baorongdi completely changed the situation. However, the people outside the temple did not know. Mo Shanghua and the Eastern Marquis have been fighting for several times, but they have no patience. They are about to hear Yan Beiqing's direct weapons intersect, but they see that Lu Zheng in the hall suddenly arrives at the gate of the hall at this moment. Although he was just a modest scholar, he dared to stand behind the troops of the Marquis in the east. He raised his voice and said, "Your Majesty is awake, Marquis in the east. Let's go and catch him." Unexpectedly, Donglin Hao smiles instead of anger. He turns his head and looks at Mo Shanghua and others in Yanbeiqing. Your Majesty is awake. Do you dare to follow me to see your Majesty in person to see who intends to rebel? Mo flower lips gently hook up, there is no fear on the face. How dare not? Words fall, turn Mao to see Yen North City one eye. There was no expression on Yen Beiqing's face. When Yen just raised his hand and said, "Wait here." Finish saying, then turn over to dismount directly, then turn around, stretch out a hand to come, see to haven't dismounted of Mo Shanghua, the vision softens down. Mo Shanghua's lips slightly curled up and he turned over and got off the horse, and then put his hand in the palm of Yen Beiqing. 2 hands slowly tighten, 10 fingers clasp. Yen Zhenxuan was not in the mood to talk and laugh with them. He got off the horse and walked quickly. At this time, the imperial guards in the hands of the Eastern Marquis also made way one after another, and their weapons were put down temporarily. As soon as he entered the hall, Yen Zhenxuan, the biological son of Baorong Emperor in Yanbei City, had not opened his mouth, so he knelt down in tears and said, "Your Majesty, you are awake. If you don't wake up all the time, I'm afraid you won't see me." As he said this, he glanced at Empress Lin standing by. At one glance, he realized that it was wrong. If Empress Lin had just woken up in Baorong, she would have turned black and white upside down. At this moment, she should not have such an expression. But at this moment, Empress Lin was standing beside her with a pale face and didn't say a word. See East face Ho to see come over, her lip petal just moved, but a word all vomit not. Yen Zhenxuan knelt down beside Donglin and saw that Baorong Emperor was sitting on the bed unharmed. He was relieved. Then he turned his eyes and glared at Donglin. In front of his father, "You should frame us like this." At the moment, Yen Beiqing had completely put away the appearance of the dandy outside, half handsome and half coquettish. Smell speech, he also can't help but lift lip sneer. The matter exactly how, the father emperor has the eye to be able to distinguish. This belongs to the dispute between their father and son. Mo Shanghua simply no longer speak, leaving all the time for their father and son. Baorongdi's face was not good-looking. After sitting for a while, he was tired. However, today's things do not allow him to fall down. "Come on, take down Donglin." Baorong Emperor didn't have the heart to listen to Donglin Ho Fun, so he gave the order directly. Donglin Ho was surprised and almost stood up directly. He was puzzled and unwilling to say, "What does your Majesty mean? Right and wrong are tortuous. I'm clear about it." Come on. Baorong Emperor's gloomy eyes fell on the face of Donglin Marquis, and his voice was very cold. Unfortunately, at the moment, the people outside the hall were either Baorong Emperor or Empress Lin, and no one came for a long time. At this time, Mo Shanghua quietly retreated. Her eyes crossed the imperial guard who was still holding fast outside the hall, and the voice of her internal power spread far away. "Your Majesty has a life. Take down Donglin immediately." Then his eyes swept over the stunned guards in front of him one by one. "If you don't go along with Donglin at this time, you may be able to pursue his guilt lightly." The guards of the imperial forest looked at each other face to face for a moment. Then they lost their weapons, knelt down and cried out, "The end will be guilty." Not to mention that Emperor Baorong has awakened and Mark Donglin has been convicted, these guards will be enough for them. This is not a war between the family and the country. Naturally, people will not fight to the end with their lives. When Zhao Wei saw this, he turned over and dismounted. With a wave of his hand, thousands of guards immediately took care of the guards who had surrendered. Then he strode forward and said, "What will your Majesty do?" "Your Majesty has just called." Mo Shanghua light mouth, turned and walked back. Zhao Wei thought about it and ordered several soldiers to follow him. Then he entered the palace together. At this time, Donglin could not accept such a fact. At last, he could not help but get up suddenly. His withered body trembled slightly. "Your Majesty, I have been loyal to you for so many years, so you treat me like this?" Emperor Baorong's tired face suddenly flashed a look of anger and exclaimed in a cold voice, "I have given you the position of Marquis and real power, but you conspire to revolt. Are you worthy of me? Worthy of your Lin family's ancestors? Come on, take him down quickly. At this time, Empress Lin finally knelt down in tears, full of despair. Father, the overall situation has been decided. In the east, Ho's old body shakes and retreats a few steps before he can stand still. His wrinkled face is gray. Zhao Weiqia came in at this time. He also listened to Emperor Baorong's orders clearly. He bowed to Emperor Baorong for a little salute and ordered 2 guards to escort Donglin. Baorong Emperor's eyes turned to Empress Lin kneeling on the ground again. His voice was cold, and there was no trace of affection to speak of. The Empress will be temporarily imprisoned in Cunning Palace. Empress Lin had lost her strength and was full of despair. Renyuan people dragged her down without too much struggle. Baorong Emperor, this just some tired waved, all go down. Yan Beiqing got up cleanly and stepped down directly. Yan Zhenxuan's step stopped, but he looked at Baorong Emperor with some concern. In the end, he didn't ask much and went down together. Mo Shanghua didn't enter this time, so he waited outside. Seeing that Yan Beiqing came out so soon, he didn't ask much. He just took the initiative to hold his hand and whispered, "It's over at last." Yan Beiqing gently clenched her hand, thin lips pulled out a light radiance. However, before a word was uttered, there was a sudden upsurge of fishy and sweet air in my mouth, which was so fierce that I couldn't control it. Then my head sank and I fell down. Mo Shanghua's whole heart was pulled up in an instant. For the first time, a flustered mood flashed across his cold and indifferent face. Beiqing, Yan Beiqing. Yan Zhenxuan also hurried forward. Come on, come on. Yan Beiqing was finally sent to the 13th prince's mansion. One of them was closest to the palace, and the other one was destroyed by most of Yu's mansion. It was Yan Zhenxuan who had not been cleaned up yet. There was no damage or casualties. Next, there will be a series of rectification. Emperor Baorong was very angry about this incident. He directly abolished the queen, and Yan Moli's title was also completely dethroned. Both mother and son were locked in the patriarchal mansion, and there was no chance to see the son again. And the charge of treason of Donglin Hao is not so easy to let go. The crime of treason should be punished. Even General Lin, who was on the border, was arrested for the first time. In the rest of the Lin family, all the men who were over 16 years old were beheaded. Before 16 years old, they were exiled to the border areas. When 16 years old, women were turned into military prostitutes. Those who were dissatisfied were sold into slavery and never turned over. At this point, the whole Queen family completely declined. Baorong Emperor's edict was issued that night and announced to the world. At the same time, the Prime Minister's office. General Qin, struggling with the pain of bandaging, gritted his teeth and said, "I wanted to catch cicadas with a mantis, but the yellow sparrow is behind. I never thought that King Yu had such strong strength to destroy all my subordinates. Now the imperial edict of the palace has come down. I'm afraid it's difficult for us to act." Lu Bohan walked back and forth in the room with his negative hand. After hearing the words, his eyes changed a lot. Finally, he sighed, "Go back, let me think about it." "Go back?" Chen General almost jumped up in an instant. "Ling Wang defeated, I also participate in it. Do you think I can go back to good?" Lu Bohan looked at General Chen with a gloomy face. "It's good that I can take you here. What else do you want?" General Chen sneered and threatened fiercely, "It's all because of your plan that I tried to cheat King Ling out of his trust. Now my people are dead, and I'm reduced to this point. If you can't send me out of the city, I'll tell you all about your plan. No one can think of it better." Lu Bohan's forehead was full of green tendons, and he gritted his teeth and said, "Good, very good." His half-inch-long beard trembled slightly because of his anger. "Housekeeper, prepare some money for him and send him out of the city as soon as possible." The housekeeper answered and said respectfully, "General, this way please." With a sneer, General Chen glanced at Lu Bohan, stood up and limped out with the housekeeper. The housekeeper followed Lu Bohan for many years. Naturally, this matter would not go wrong. He soon handled everything properly and found a carriage to send General Chen out of the city quietly. Before the carriage reached the gate of the city, it was suddenly stopped by a man and a woman. When the coachman saw someone standing in the middle of the road, he quickly reined and the carriage slowly stopped. Hua Qianlu stood upright in the middle of the road, holding the folding fan in his hand, smiling lazily and casually. "General Chen, you really want to wait for me?" As soon as the voice fell, then he raised his foot and kicked it on his leg. "Put your broken fan away." Flower Thousand Willow Pain of show teeth, but also dare not refute, hastily put away the fan. "Please General South Crane smile." Then he snorted, raised his chin slightly, and his eyes fell coldly. "General Chen, I don't know if you still remember us." General Chen listened to the figure of a man and a woman outside the carriage. Then he lifted the curtain and poked his head out of the carriage. "Who are you? What's the purpose?" Smell speech, Flower Thousand Willows smile to sing of remind. Chen General expensive person forgets a thing more, let this child to remind for general. That day, you had a secret talk with a mysterious man, intending to seek the throne, but you were overheard. Do you remember? Chen General looked up and down at this time two people one eye, slightly narrowed eyes. You are not dead. Afterwards, he clearly found the bodies of two men in black in the city, which were very similar to those in front of him. South Crane called a beautiful face, Wei, not only that, we still know clearly now, and you make peace with that person, is Lu Xiang Lu Bo Han. Chen General's eyes are gloomy to stare at two people to see for a long time, then suddenly put down the car curtain, malicious mouth, hit past, nothing to do. The coachman hesitated, this. Rubbish. Chen General is exasperated to lift the car curtain again immediately, draw out the short sword between the waist to insert the horse's buttocks directly. Startled by the pain, the horse hissed and ran forward like mad. During this period of time, Hua Qianlu and Nan he had already developed an unspeakable tacit understanding. They looked at each other and then quickly flashed away at the same time. At the moment when the carriage was speeding by, they jumped onto the carriage with a light point on their toes, and surrounded the frightened coachman from left to right. The coachman was frightened by the horse, but now when he saw that the two men had just boarded the carriage out of thin air, his blood fainted. Hua Qianlu and Nan he didn't have time to pay attention to the coachman, so they leaned directly into the carriage. Hua Qianlu just put his head in, and a short sword went straight to his neck. He quickly lifted the sword to block him. It's natural that General Chen is good at his present position with a white suit, but he has hurt his leg now, so he will suffer a loss if he really fights. Fortunately, there is very little space in the carriage, so it's very hard to fight. Nanha, a petite man, went into the carriage to fight with General Chen. But in a short time, the carriage broke apart with a loud bang. The wood chips and boards were flying in all directions. The coachman also screamed and flew out together. He fell to the ground unconscious. The horse was hit by the flying board. It ran faster and faster. It was about to hit the city wall. Nanha and Hui Qianliu didn't care much. They jumped out of the carriage and landed on the ground steadily. General Chen was not so lucky. He was injured in his leg and couldn't jump down neatly. It was just the result that his other leg was broken together. After thinking for a while, the carriage ran into the wall, and he fell back to the ground with a scream. Unfortunately, when he landed, he fell on the top of a broken door panel and lost his breath. The new guard at the gate looked at each other for a long time and gathered around. Flower Thousand Willows spread out hand, full face helpless. This cannot blame you and me. Stop talking nonsense and go back to the office. The South Crane is deeply aware of the fact that Hua Qianlu talks a lot. Without saying a word, he pulls his collar and walks back. This is on the street, you just left me some face, Hua Qianlu was grabbed by the South Crane and started shouting. But when you look at it carefully, the smile flashed between her eyebrows. The palace of Imperial Concubine Qin. The third prince panted into the inner hall. When Chen Fei, who had been pacing in the hall, saw him coming, she quickly came forward and grasped his arm. How's your uncle? Imperial concubine Qin is the sister of General Qin. And Chen Fei's foot ban was lifted as early as after the former Empress Lin lifted the foot ban. We have news. The third prince wiped the sweat on his forehead, but he hesitated for a long time. Chen Fei's eyes looked earnestly at the third prince, and the uneasiness in her heart became more and more intense. Say it quickly. The third prince was silent for a moment, and then said, "My uncle took part in the second brother's conspiracy, and he wanted to escape from the palace privately. Unexpectedly, he was shocked, bumped into the wall, and died." What? Chen Fei grabbed the third prince's arm and suddenly tightened her hand, shaking her body. "Mother Princess. The third prince is a dutiful son. He quickly and firmly holds Princess Qin. Mother Princess, this is because my uncle is too dazzled. You can have fun. Don't be too sad, and your father is angry with you." When Chen Fei heard the words, she felt a surge of anger in her head. She didn't know where the strength came from. She raised her hand and hit the third prince in the face. "You bastard! Do you know? Your uncle is for you." The last sentence had reached her throat, but she still swallowed it, tears in her eyes, full of regret. In the final analysis, they were too fanciful. They even wanted a mantis to catch cicadas after several princes were defeated, but they didn't know that King Yu was really powerful. Yen Moli couldn't compete with him. From the beginning, they shouldn't have asked for it. And the third prince, he is soft and timid. If he knew it early, he would show his feet in front of others. Therefore, Chen Fei and General Qin didn't tell him about it. They wanted to tell him about it directly after it was finished. That is to say, he didn't want to and could only ascend the throne. Unexpectedly, he got such a result. Think of here, Chen Fei, sad from the heart, slowly walked to the chair to sit down. Finished. Wei Chen also finished. The third prince covered his swollen and painful cheek beaten by Imperial concubine Qin. He went to Imperial concubine Qin with his head down. After a long time, he didn't know how to comfort her. Princess Qin just sat with tears streaming down her face. "Concubine, do you have something to hide from me? Is there something else about my uncle's death?" After a long silence, the third prince suddenly raised his eyes and looked at Chen Fei. Chen Fei's heart, which was already dead, jumped fiercely. Almost immediately she denied, "Nothing happened." After a pause, she got up again, grasped the third prince's arm tightly in both hands, and stared at him. "This matter must not be mentioned again. Don't mention anything about your uncle in front of your father, or plead for the Chen family." The third prince nodded his head in confusion and doubt. He felt confused in his heart. Looking at such a dull son, Princess Qin settled down in her heart. Her son is not very intelligent, otherwise, I'm afraid that at such a time, she would not be willing to fight. And this time, she will always write down, no longer dare to think about that position. At that time, Yen Beicheng was lying quietly on his bed, even in a coma, and his cold breath was not reduced at all. The clothes on his chest were untied, revealing the tight skin of white jade. But he was slapped by Yen Mo, but there was no scar. There was only a faint black air around his chest. This thing is invisible in Yen Sichuan's eyes. Only the flower on the street can see it clearly. Even, the black air seems to have some magic power, which makes her quite uncomfortable. Even so, she still did not let go of her hand, holding Yen Beicheng tightly. Her eyes were fixed on Yen Beicheng's chest, her red lips were tight, and her eyes were full of worry and anxiety. "What's the matter? Why is there no scar? Why is pulse condition also normal? Why is it that I'm in such a coma?" Mo Xianghua has always been very confident in her medical skills, but she never thought that she could cure all the people in the world, but she could not cure the most important man in front of her. Think of here, her heart suddenly a burst of pain. The anxiety in the heart let her several desire madness. However, she is good at covering up, that is, how she is in her heart, and she still can't help it. In the eyes of outsiders, she is just dementia, so she quietly holds Yen Beicheng's hand and sits silently. "Sister Huang, if you don't want to let Dr. Lu have a look, maybe you can find a way." Mo Xianghua sat here for a long time, and Yen Zhenchuan stayed with him for a long time. I couldn't bear it, and I couldn't help gently comforting him. Mo Shanghua held Yen Beiqing's hand tightly, and finally released his hand temporarily, giving way to a position. Lu Zheng's eyes are complex to see a flower on the street, and then just came forward, for Yen Beiqing pulse diagnosis and treatment. Under this pulse, his brow also tightly tightened up. How is this possible? Since the body is all right, why can you be in a coma? Think of here, he raised his hand to open Yen Beiqing's eyelids to have a look, but Mo Shanghua raised his hand to stop him, hoarse voice. No, nothing can be found. After standing in the air for a long time, Lu finally took it back and said in a low voice, since there is no scar, maybe he will wake up soon. Mo Shanghua shook his head. There was no expression on his beautiful face. You all go out. Others can't see it, but in her eyes, Yen Beiqing's side is also full of black air, which will make people feel uncomfortable when they are close. Yen Zhenchuan could not see that Mo Shanghua was so depressed, nor could Yen Beiqing look like this. He clenched his fist and said, I'll go to the Zhongrenfu to find the second emperor brother. I must ask him what evil things he has practiced. Said, regardless of the personal boy's dissuasion, turned and left. The flowers on the street did not turn back, nor did they make a sound to stop them. They were dead in their hearts. Princess. Qinya knows Mo Shanghua best. Seeing her like this, she knows that he must be so sad that he can't help whispering. All out. Mo Shanghua directly interrupts Qinya's words and repeats what he just said. Qinya wants to say something else. Mo Ling, who has been injured and has not yet been cured, looks at her and indicates with her eyes. Qinya just stopped and went out first with Mo Ling. Call me if you need me, and I'll wait at the door. Lu was whispering after her, and then he turned and went out. When everyone went out, Mo Shanghua moved her dry lips again, and her voice was especially hoarse. Yen Beiqing, what are you doing? Are you trying to tease me again? Yen Bei City on the bed had no reaction, still lying quietly. The heart of the flower on the street is filled with bitterness. Xan Chang is as cold as her. At this time, her eyes are especially sour. It seems that as long as you blink, tears will fall directly. But she never allowed herself to be so fragile. She raised her head and forced back the hot tears in her eyes. She said with a helpless and painful smile, You are really bad. I was told to be careful before. I didn't expect that I was plotted against you. You don't miss it. You bury a trap early. Yen Moli steps into the palace and orders Lu Zheng to replace the medicine given by the queen to Baorong Emperor, making him just in a temporary coma. Why didn't you calculate for himself? Mo Shanghua said word by word, although his voice is hoarse, but very gentle. You said before that your mother's wife was framed. The real backstage is Empress Lin, right? You haven't told me personally, Yen Beiqing. Do you know that your revenge has been avenged? Emperor Baorong has been too stimulated and completely ill now. Everything is over. In the future, we can have a long time to play. Why don't you get up and share this joy with us? Unfortunately, no matter what she said, Yen Beiqing was still lying on the bed with her eyes closed, and there was no sign of awakening. Yen Beiqing. Mo Shanghua put Yen Beiqing's hand on her cheek, and her voice was very light and gentle. Our children are waiting for you to wake up. You must be safe and sound. Between speaking, she blinked, a drop of tears fell on the back of Yen Beiqing's hand. Huaqian Liuna, who came back the latest, was supposed to have a good drink with Yen Beiqing. I didn't think that when I came in, I saw Yen Beiqing in a daze, and the flower on the street was almost desperate. What's going on? Flower Willow busy stride to the bed, habitual smile also closed up, brow tightly locked. South Crane also went to the couch with flowers and willows. Why did the Lord become like this? Mo Shanghua's originally gentle eyes were suddenly covered with a deep layer of cold, expressionless enunciation. There are no scars on the body, and the pulse condition is normal. I can recognize what you see. Although Hua Qianlu didn't know the medical skills, he was dignified when he heard Mo Shanghua say that, have you seen all of them? But what are the side effects? Mo Shanghua shook his head and clenched Yan Beiqing's hand. I don't know why. But in any case, she will not give up. If Yan Beiqing is so unconscious, she will guard his life as he used to guard her in secret. If something goes wrong, there must be a demon. There must be no sign at all. South Crane is calm, slightly bent over, 2 hands on the shoulder of Mo Shanghua. You calm down in careful look, maybe there will be something to find. South Crane's words, let the beautiful flowers on the street gently frown. Since Yan Beiqing was in a coma, she was so calm. In fact, her heart had been in chaos. At this time, Nanha's words made her thinking ability gradually recover. If we say something unusual, it is the dark air in the chest of Yanbei City. But Hua Qianlu and Nan couldn't see it either. She was afraid that she was too anxious to read it wrong. But at this time, she was alarmed. Think carefully, in the palm of Yan Mo Li's hand before, seemed to also linger this breath. Maybe. A possibility surged up in my heart, and the flowers on the street almost stood up and disappeared in a flash. Qingling's voice came from afar, guard for me, don't allow anyone to come near. Looking at flowers in the street, Hua Qianlu and Nan look at each other, and they can see a sigh in each other's eyes. However, they have no plans to love each other at the moment. They conscientiously remember the words of Mo Shanghua and guard Yan Beiqing in the house. When the flowers came out of the palace, they directly asked for a fast horse and drove the horse around the city. At this time, the imperial city was still in the middle of the revolution, so there were no pedestrians on the streets, so they didn't worry about spending money on the streets. They just rushed to Ning Songji's present residence as soon as possible. Better know. As soon as I got to the door, the flower on the street didn't care to tie up the horse, so I went up and patted the door directly. Soon someone opened the door, but it was Shue. She frowned and looked at the flowers on the street with displeasure. In such a hurry, is it not that the defeat has been chased nowhere to go? Mo Shanghua didn't have time to talk with her, so she went directly over her to the hospital. I don't have time to fight with you now. I thought Shue might still be in a dilemma. I didn't think she was just playing with her mouth. She didn't dare to stop her when she really went in. Ning knows in the courtyard to know just at this time pace but come out. Also just a faint smile to go up the Mo Shang flower. I know your intention, go. So, he's really a clever one? Mo Shanghua wants to think more about the future, and immediately turns sharp. Ning knows that she will follow. She was so anxious that she didn't want to delay at all, but there was only one horse. She simply gave the horse to Ning Tongji, but she mobilized her internal power and directly carried the lightness skill Ji Qie back. Soon came to the palace, Missouri Shanghua pushed open the door, pulled Ning Tongji over, did not care to wipe the sweat on his forehead, panted and asked, I only asked, can you see it? While speaking, one hand pointed directly at Yan Beiqing's chest. The flower willow on one side has not recovered from the speed of flowers on the street, but also heard her so inexplicably come, more confused, what can you see but can't see? However, no one answered him. Rather no even did not look at the direction of flowers on the road, then gently nodded, see. There was a doubt in the eyes of flowers on the street. He went forward and pulled Yan Beiqing's skirt open. Just when his fingertips met the black air, it was as if he had been burned by something. His fingertips were stinging and burning, but there was no scar when he raised his hand. Rather no brow, this just slightly wrinkled a few minutes, low voice exhort, you can't touch this thing. But, what the hell is this? I just feel so stingy, so what should he do? Is it life-threatening? Mo Shanghua took back her hand in her heart. Xiaomei wrinkled her eyes tightly. Her worry became more and more intense. A series of questions could not dispel her confusion and anxiety. One side of the flower willow and South Crane is to see the fog. Listen to the meaning of flowers on the street is that there seems to be something in Yan Beiqing's chest, which can be seen from their sight. It is clear that there is nothing. What are they talking about? Looking at Hua Qianlu still want to open his mouth, then he raised his hand and twisted it around his waist, then glared at him, let's go out first and wait outside the room. The house was so quiet that Hua Qianlu had to endure the pain. She didn't dare to go out with Nan He. Lu Zheng is also waiting outside. He sees them smiling politely, and then he sits aside. At that time, Ning Tongji put his hand over an inch of Yan Beiqing's chest and explained, King Ling was interested in some of the Wuxian's techniques before, so he ordered people to watch me all the time. I simply gave him a book of the cultivation of immortals at will. As he said this, the palm of his hand, which covered Yan Beiqing's chest, gave out a light white light. The art of cultivating immortals was just bought by me at the market. I didn't expect that he believed it. I didn't know how to do it, and he developed some evil spirit. With his words, the light in the palm of his hand flourished. In a moment he scattered the black qi everywhere. If he had vitality, he wanted to escape. However, the white light in Ning's hands seemed to have some attraction. It soon spread and wrapped the black qi in it, so that there was no escape for the black qi. Mo Shanghua has always known that the world may not be as simple as she imagined, but she never thought that such a spell actually exists. More than that, what's more shocking is that Yan Beiqing was hurt by the evil spirit. Think of here, Mo Shanghua's heart seems to be tightly grasped by a big hand. This evil spirit should be some evil things. If so, what kind of damage will it do to his body? Ning didn't answer. At this time he had reached the key point. He suddenly turned his palm over. The originally scattered evil qi was wrapped up in something. Seeing that all these evil qi had been controlled by Ning Tongji, he suddenly turned his palm over again and put it directly on Yan Beiqing's chest. Ning knew that when he took back his hand, the strong evil spirit suddenly disappeared into his chest, and there was no trace. Mo Shanghua's heart suddenly jumps, her hands eagerly touch Yan Beiqing's chest, but she can't see a trace of black gas. Her eyes are congested and she turns her head anxiously. Isn't that evil gas? What are you doing? In the face of emotion cannot be so excited on the flowers, rather no, just a faint smile. You don't have to worry, these for him is not a bad thing. Mo Shanghua looks back at Yan Beiqing's face, eager to confirm whether Ning Tongji's words are true or false. However, the red birthmark on his face, which was controlled by drugs all the year round, suddenly disappeared at this time. A pretty face of a beautiful monster was no longer exposed in front of people. In a coma, Yan Beiqing seemed to have some consciousness. His sword eyebrows frowned slightly, and his consciousness groped on the bed. Mo Shanghua sent Su Shou up, and he held it tightly in an instant. Rao is so, that pair of deep eyes but still no sign to open. What's going on? Feel the back of the hand in the hot heat. Mo Shanghua heart anxiety almost burst out of the chest, really can't control the question again. Ning knows that he is standing beside his bed, dressed in white and with a faint smile on his lips. It seems that everything in the world can't escape from his eyes, just like a real expert. Mo Shanghua's eyes narrowed gradually, trying to restrain the panic caused by Yan Beiqing. What's your real purpose? I don't know why. She always has a premonition in her heart that this person seems to have seen through everything in the world and calculated everything. Even these days, she has seen everything in her eyes. Ning knew that he didn't seem to be surprised by the hostility of Mo Shanghua. With a slight smile, he said, everything in the world has its own destiny, but it's not uncommon to calculate the number of days. My real purpose is that you will know one day. In a word, I have no malice to you. After a pause, he added, these evil qi are absorbed by him, which may be fatal for you, but it may not be a bad thing for him. Within 3 days, he will wake up. You don't have to panic about any changes that have taken place in him. After 3 days, he will be all right. After an explanation, he didn't stop and turn to leave. Everything has cause and effect. You should take care of it. It's time for me to go back to the Wuxian clan. Everything has cause and effect. Mo Shanghua whispers this sentence repeatedly in her heart. It seems that there is a flash in her heart. She suddenly stands up, but because Yan Beiqing is holding her hand tightly, she can't leave, so she can only shout in a hurry, wait. S voice dropped, and Nin's familiar figure vanished like foam, with no trace. Such a shocking picture, Let me spend a long time back to God. What does? For a long time, the flowers on the street were beautiful and wrinkled tightly. I was surprised and suspicious. She suddenly remembered that she had been given the box by Ning Tongji, and she wanted to open it. But Yen Beiqing, who was in a coma, did not know where the strength came from and held her tightly. Mo Shanghua had to do it again. She looked down at Yen Beiqing's evil face and could not help raising her hand to caress his face with birthmark. It's hot to start with. In the exploration forehead is also the same hot, even with her hand tightly clasped together are so hot. Mo Shanghua subconsciously felt Yen Beiqing's pulse with his empty right hand. Such a hot temperature, but the pulse is still normal. However, Yen Beiqing seemed to be a little uncomfortable. His brows tightened more and more tightly, and fine beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. Mo Shanghua clenched Yen Beiqing's hand and put his cheek on his chest. It was really hot. I'll wait for you and protect you. Yanbei City in front of her is enough to let Mo Shanghua put all her thoughts into it. She simply doesn't think about anything else and closes her eyes slightly. Simply, the hot body temperature and strong heartbeat all remind her that Yen Beiqing is safe and sound. He is just sleeping temporarily. In the Zhongrenfu, Yen Moli almost lost his mind in yesterday's World War I. Yen Zhenxuan came to question angrily. Naturally, there was no result. On the contrary, as soon as he left the Zhongrenfu, he was called by Baorong Emperor. No one came to visit, and the jailers naturally drank wine in groups. There was no one else in the prison, and Yen Mo's crazy look slowly faded away. In the eagle's eyes, which were covered by disorderly hair, there flashed a strong and almost real evil. Yanbei City, I didn't lose. One day I will take your life personally. The voice, almost squeezed out of his teeth, came out of his mouth. As soon as he had said this, he sat cross-legged, closed his eyes again, put his hands on his knees, and recited a mental method in his heart. After reading Ning Tsong Zigyai's book, he combined some key points of internal skill and learned that mental skill by himself, but he didn't want to be so easy to use. If the only regret is that so far, he has only successfully used it yesterday, and some of it was not controlled. However, these are no harm. He believes that with his talent, if he reaches a certain level of cultivation, he will be free to control. I don't know that the book was just given by Ning Tongji. He had lived in the palace since he was a child. It was very secret. He didn't tell anyone about it, so he didn't think it was just written by a folk warlock. At this time, Ning Kongji appeared out of thin air and looked at Yen Moli, who was practicing. The prison of the Zhongren mansion was also a prison. Countless people died here. Naturally, the evil spirit was much stronger than usual. Therefore, in a moment, the evil spirit had been running slowly in Yen Moli's palm. It's something that shouldn't be here. Yen Moli is indeed an anomaly. Ning knew that his face was not indifferent. He looked at it for a while without expression. He suddenly raised his hand and waved it. A more intense white light flew straight towards Yen Mo than when he was curing Yanbei City. The evil spirit that haunted Yen Mo Li's whole body was instantly dispersed, and there was no sign to exist. Yen Moli covered his chest and fell heavily on the ground. A smell of fishy and sweet came from his mouth and he spat out a mouthful of blood. It's you! Yen Mo Liqiang sat up and felt that there was just some evil qi in the dantian, but he couldn't even feel it. You really know magic. However, this spell seems to be different from what he knows. It seems to be extremely holy. Ning knows to drop the Mayu to sweep him one eye. The Mao inside has no a silk emotion. If see a more common mole ant general, these things shouldn't appear here. I just come to take back. What do you mean? Yen Moli endured chest pain. Eyes flashed a touch of incredible. Ning knew but didn't explain. His figure disappeared directly in front of Yen Moli, which shocked him. He thought that if he had only found some ways, he could seriously injure Yen Beiqing. It can be seen that Ning Tongji's magic skills are so advanced. But what does he mean by what he just said? What do you mean? An idea loomed in Yen Mo Li's heart. At the moment he couldn't care about the pain in his chest. He struggled to get up and concentrate on practice. However, no matter how much he concentrated on practicing, the elixir field was still empty, and the sense of mystery that just rose no longer existed. In his heart, he was really unwilling. He tried several more times but still had no reaction at all. Even I can't feel the breath of internal power. I will kill you. Kill you. Yenmo's eyes were full of blood, and his spirit collapsed again. Originally, he still had the idea of dormancy in his heart, but at this time, there was no chance at all. It's all over. He has lost completely and will never turn over. Thinking of this, Yen Moli was even more annoyed. He raised his hand and hit the wall again and again. He didn't know the pain. He murmured, "I'm going to kill you. I'll kill you." However, it was all in vain. For 3 days, Mo Shanghua stayed by Yen Beicheng day and night. Even when he had a rest at night, he simply lay down beside him and fell asleep with him, and never left for a moment. She had a little life in her belly, so she was very concerned about her body. Besides always staying by Yen Beicheng's side, she didn't miss eating and resting. Zhao Wei reported that Prince Lien's 20,000 imperial guards were at the foot of the city, and a young general wanted to see Yen Beicheng. Yen Beicheng is still in a coma, and Mo Shanghua hasn't seen the general without permission. He only asked Zhao Wei to report the matter to Emperor Baorong of Ming Dynasty. Then he observed the vision of the imperial city a few days ago, and a soldier Fang Langyan had to appear here. In fact, it was Yen Beicheng who ordered people to go there to prevent General Chen from leaving behind and fighting back afterwards. He didn't expect things to go so smoothly, so he didn't need it. Baorong Emperor also quickly made a decree, leaving 10,000 forbidden troops to fill the vacancy, and the remaining 10,000 went back to guard without any punishment to the prince. At that time, Mo Shanghua was taking a wet handkerchief to help Yen Beicheng wipe his forehead. Qin Ye, as before, stood behind Mo Shanghua and said to her about the trend of the imperial city in recent days. "Princess, guess who is the young general who entered the forbidden camp alone?" Mo Flower gently pick eyebrows. Han's action did not stop. "Who is it?" "It's General Mo Jiang. It said that he's still Prince Lien, and that's how he can get his talisman." Speaking of this, Qin Ye's eyes were all shining. "There's one more thing. I'd like to thank you, concubine Wang." Mo Shanghua had known what Qin Ye said for a long time. Seeing her so excited, she was surprised. Mo Jiang is thousands of miles away in Yuzhou, but he still has such a relationship with Prince Lien. In the past, he really couldn't see anything. "But what do you owe me?" Qin Ye turns to open the door with a smile. A man dressed in armor and covered with wind and dust came in quickly, knelt down straight in front of the flowers on the street. "I've seen the princess." Then he knocked his head on the ground. Mo Shanghua, the kowtow is so fast that she can't see who it is. However, the familiar voice, as well as Qin Ye's curved eyebrows and smiling lips, she also instantly knew. "Get up first." Mo Shanghua puts the handkerchief aside for the time being and gets up to help Qin Lin in person. Qin Lin was flattered by the strength of Mo Shanghua, with a full smile on his resolute dark cheek. Over the past few months, he has changed a lot. Not only has he lost all his servant appearance, but he has some light black stubble on his chin, which makes him look more manly. Qin Ye was very happy when she saw her brother's transformation. She gave a salute to Hua Fushan and said, "My brother is now the vanguard of General Mo. He depends on the princess for his success. I want to thank her here." Yen Beicheng has been in a coma for 3 days. In these 3 days, Mo Shanghua's mood has calmed down a lot. It's not that he can't see the smiling faces of his brother and sister, and he is happy for Qin Lin. Mo Shanghua raised her hand and patted Qin Lin on the shoulder. Her hands were full of the touch of iron armor. "It's good to be able to jump from a recruit to the vanguard position in just a few months. Qin Lin, you really didn't let me down." Although his temperament and identity changed, Qin Lin habitually touched the back of his head with a simple and honest smile. In fact, it's just a slave who had good luck. He sneaked into northern Xinjiang with the general before and quietly burned General Nalin's grain and grass. Fortunately, he didn't die. Only in this way can he become a pioneer. Qin Ya immediately jumped in front of Qin Lin, and her face was full of pride. If you hadn't been brave and resourceful, you wouldn't have been so. Brother, don't be modest. Qin Lin was really embarrassed by Qin Ya's words. A blush appeared on his dark face. He scratched his back and didn't know how to refute. But the more Qin Ya saw, the more she felt that her elder brother was wearing armor. She couldn't help raising her hand and touching his armor. She sighed, "It's heavy to see. It's amazing that my elder brother can wear it every day." Just then, Mo Ling's voice sounded out of the door at this time. "Tell Princess, I have something to report to you. Just come in." Qin Ya has not yet opened the door, Mo Shanghua has directly ordered. These days, Yan Beiqing is in a coma. No matter Mo Ling or Nan He, they spontaneously hand over Yan Beiqing's affairs to Mo Shanghua. However, after entering the house, he looked at Qin Ya for the first time. At this glance, a strange color flashed across his face. He forced himself to turn his head and salute in front of the flowers on the street. "I've seen the princess." Mo Shanghua put Mo Ling's look into her eyes, but she only said, "That's Qin Ya's brother, not an outsider. You can say something directly." Mo Lingmu's strangeness disappeared a little and said, "Princess, all the corpses in the palace have been disposed of, and the brothers who should be buried have been buried. But the palace is seriously damaged, and it will take at least 1 month to repair. At present, only 2 bedrooms can be set aside for you to live in the Lord." Mo Shanghua nodded slightly. "This matter is not urgent. Wait for your lord to wake up, and then discuss. My subordinates are leaving." Mo Ling has always been a little talkative. Now that the report is finished, he is ready to leave. As she turned around, her eyes swept around Qin Ya's delicate face uncontrollably, then she looked away and walked out without squinting. Qin Ya was also quite strange. She looked at Qin Lin and said, "Brother, I suddenly remember that there are still some things I haven't done. You have nothing to do in the army these days. I'll come back to you later." Then he ran away with his skirt. But a moment later, she heard her voice outside the door, "Brother, wait for me." Qin Ya frowns at the half-open door, which Qin Ya forgot to close when she just went out. "Princess, sister, is she with?" Qin Lin hesitated for a long time, or can't help asking, but just said half. He can't say the following words. Seeing Qin Lin's broken heart for his sister, Mo Shanghua was amused. "I seldom go out these days, and I don't know some things. What's more, Qin Ya's business should be watched by your elder brother." Qin Lin immediately understood something in his heart. He made a hasty salute to the flower on the street, and then he hurriedly retreated. "I have something else to do, so I'll leave first." Then he left in a hurry. When he went out, he forgot to close the door like Qin Ya. It's really brother and sister. Mo Shanghua's mood was a little better after 3 days of haze. He slowly stepped forward to close the door, and then simply leaned on the wooden door. His eyes fell on Yan Beiqing, who was still lying on the bed. The hot temperature of his body had gone down, but there was no change in his face. He was still in a daze. However, his face that suddenly disappeared birthmark, it was not found. After all, his birthmark was born on his right face, and when he lay down, others could only see his left cheek. Except for the flowers on the street, no one came near him, and naturally no one could see him. "Yan Beiqing, you should wake up soon, right? When you wake up, let's deal with some of the last things here and then go around to play, okay? In fact, I haven't seen the kingdom of God." Mo Shanghua leans against the door and looks at Yan Beiqing's handsome face from a distance. Her lips are gently tilted and curved, as if she has seen many things after he wakes up. What she thought in her heart was all the happiness in the future. However, she was just a habitual soliloquy and did not expect Yan Beiqing to wake up immediately. "Good," a deep, hoarse voice suddenly sounded slowly. Mo Shanghua is like being struck by lightning. She looks at the moment and wakes up. She turns her head and looks at her Yanbei city. For 3 days, Mo Shanghua was used to talking to herself. I didn't expect that Yen Beiqing could respond to her at this time. Yen Beiqing just woke up, but he didn't have much strength, but he still sat up and leaned on the soft pillow. He pulled out a gentle smile from the corner of his lip. How? Are you stupid? Mo Shanghua completely recovered, and almost immediately ran from the door to the bedside. Yen Beiqing, are you really awake? I'm not dreaming? Mo Shanghua has some unbelievable hands caressing Yen Beiqing's face. Her cool touch makes her feel very unreal, but she feels very down to earth. You wake up at last. Murmur a sound in the flower mouth on the street, and then directly rush to Yen Beiqing's arms. Yen Beiqing just woke up and he had no strength. With this fierce rush, he almost couldn't hold on and fell on the bed. In the end, however, it was supported by a soft pillow. A familiar faint fragrance came from his nose. Yen Beiqing gently stroked the black hair of the flowers on the street and said in a hoarse voice, "Naturally, I'm really awake. I'm really in front of you." Mo Shanghua hugs Yen Beiqing tightly. Her eyes are hot and her nose is sour. In order not to let his tears flow out, but hold for a while, Mo Shanghua released Yen Beiqing, slightly raised his head, deliberately not to see Yen Beiqing. As the old saying goes, one day is like 3 autumn. Yen Beiqing coma these days, Mo Shanghua seems nothing, but the heart felt more difficult than the 3 autumn. How are you? Do you have any discomfort? Bear the sour and astringent eyes, the flowers on the street, the light of the eyes is looking at Yenbei City, the light of the eyes is especially soft. Yen Beiqing a heart suddenly soft down, smell speech also just gently shake head, lip cape immediately stir up a smile. I'm naturally very good, you just don't worry. Then he raised his hand and hammered it on his chest as if he didn't believe it. As expected, his face was as usual. In order to make her feel at ease, he thought about it, and then he would hammer it twice again. Mo Shanghua grabs his hand and looks at his eyes like anger and resentment. It's hard to wake up. Do you want to spoil yourself like this? Yen North City also don't speak, just looking at Mo Shanghua smile lightly. After waking up this time, she looked at the flowers on the street more sentimentally than before. Her eyes swept inch by inch from her slightly haggard face, as if she were looking at something precious. For a long time, she held her hand without saying a word. I'll never let you go. Mo Shanghua did not listen to the truth, full of joy, also did not pursue more. A hand gently stroking his belly, said with a smile, I have this little guy, are looking forward to you wake up. What little thing? Yen North City Lung Lung, B. Mo Shanghua this sudden words surprised not light, even some reaction not come over. Mo Shanghua's smile is deeper, and her eyebrows and eyes are more gentle. She has been 2 months now. I didn't tell you before that I was afraid of your distraction. Now everything has been settled. Naturally, it's time for you to be afraid of her and look forward to happiness for her. Even in Qinya's place, she had given a death order before. She could never reveal a word to Yen Beiqing for fear of distracting him. Yen Beiqing was stunned for a long time, but he didn't come back for a long time. For a long time, his pupil turned gently, and then a huge surprise flashed out of his lips. He seemed to have the strength in an instant. Yigula got up from the bed. His hands were close to the belly of the flower in the street carefully. When he was about to meet her, he didn't know why he drew back. He looked up at her with a pair of phoenix eyes. Is it true? Mo flower lips gently raised. Nature is true, she will lie here after 8 months, will quack to the ground. Yen Beiqing was almost dazzled by this huge surprise. His hands wandered in front of Mo Shanghua's stomach for a long time, but he didn't dare to touch it. He just grasped Mo Shanghua's hand, and some commissars said wrongly, Emma, I dare not touch it. Mo Shanghua was amused by his appearance, and looked at him with curved eyebrows. Yen Beiqing, what's your prestige 3 days ago? Why don't you even dare to touch it now? Yen North City only clenched the hand of Mo Shanghua. He just 2 months, in your belly should not be formed, I'm afraid I rashly start, will move the fetus. Touch it and you'll move the fetal chi? You are really... Mo Shanghua couldn't help laughing. The more she looked at Yen Beiqing, the more lovely she felt. Yen Beiqing, however, was still upright. He turned his lips and said, "My child is not afraid to say that he is weak, but if he wants 10,000, what if there is a good or bad thing?" Then he didn't know what he thought of. He suddenly stood up straight and put his boots on his feet. "It's a great joy. I'm going to tell the world." Seeing this, Mo Shanghua quickly dragged him back. He was angry and funny and looked at him. "Tell the world what, when you are already in the dragon chair? Besides," she smiles a little and points to his cheek, "the things on your face have not been painted yet." When Yen Beiqing heard the speech, he subconsciously touched his cheek over there. Naturally, he soon felt that it was wrong, and his eyebrows tightened up. Because of the medication, the skin on his face was always coarser than that on other places. At the moment, the familiar feeling didn't come, but it was greasy. Yen Beiqing found a copper basin in the room, fished out the wet handkerchief, and took it as a mirror. Sure enough, as Mo Shanghua said, it disappeared, even without a trace. His sword eyebrow immediately tightly screwed up, eyes color dignified. "If this thing doesn't use a separate medicine, it can't disappear naturally. Mo, what happened?" Talking about this matter, Mo Shanghua's smile also subsided. He repeated all the things of that day and said, "After that, you were boiling hot all over again. It lasted all night, and it faded the next day." Yen Beiqing felt the medicine from his body and dropped a few drops on his face. In the past, as soon as he touched the skin, he would immediately feel like the red medicine sticking on it. Now, like the smooth oil, it flowed down his cheek again. He wiped it lightly with his hand, and there was still no trace on his skin. Mo Shanghua also felt strange. She took the medicine from Yen Beiqing and dropped a drop on her arm. The red potion immediately coagulated on her white arm and looked like a drop of red mole. This time, not only Yen Beiqing, but also Mo Shanghua was puzzled. However, when she thought of Ning's words before she left, she had some opinions in her heart. Maybe it's true. As Ning said, everything has a reason. Yen Beiqing was able to absorb the evil qi. After waking up, there was nothing different except that the potion could not be used on his face. Maybe there's something in between. Thinking of this, he was a little relieved. He raised his hand and grasped his hand. He said with a smile, "Everything in the world has a definite number. This may be a good thing that you don't have to appear in the future with that ugly appearance." Yen North City's slightly hook-lip a smile, "Also not tangle this matter, I hope so." However, his deep eyes like endless, but very quickly across a faint light. In an instant there is no trace. Since then, Emperor Baorong has not been in court for half a month. In this half-month, Emperor Baorong simply handed over the responsibility of supervising the country to Yen Zhenxuan. Yen Zhenxuan is not willing to take this job in his heart, but since things have come to this point, he can't refuse it anymore. As for the rest of the prince and others, the original marriage date was extended again, which also made Princess Chen and other concubines worried all day. Fortunately, with the delay of the wedding, Baorong Emperor finally granted the princes their respective kings. However, only Yen Zhenxuan, who has been entrusted with the important task, has been unable to become the king for a long time. All the ministers have understood the intention. Therefore, those who have not yet stood in line have also stood in line, but only Liu Bohan, the prime minister, has not stood in line. On the other hand, since Yen Beiqing woke up, the couple moved away from the 13th prince's mansion, but did not return to the palace. Instead, they chose a very quiet house. Yenbei City is not going to court every day. Every few days, he has to find a reason not to go to court and stay in the mansion with the flowers on the street. As for Baorong Emperor and the Empress Dowager, every day he seems to be a routine. After a visit the other day, he doesn't care much. As for the missing birthmark on his face, he didn't bother to cover it up. When someone asked, he said that he had been blessed by the national teacher and helped him erase it. Empress Lin hanged herself after 10 days in the imperial palace. Yen Moli is still in prison. Her old feud has already been avenged. If you go to dig up the old accounts and thoroughly investigate the incident of that year, I'm afraid there won't be so many things to spend with her. As for the identity of the national teacher, he went to travel all over the world as the national teacher to seek the way to prolong the life of Baorong Emperor. Now the house is quite elegant and secluded. It would be nice to be a place to cultivate and recuperate. The servants are all selected by Nanha. There are not many people selected, but they are all competent and no one else's work. Yan Beiqing and Mo Shanghua had a very comfortable half-month. Mo, taste the sour plum soup and the green plum. If it's not enough, I'm going to Linqing to get some for you. Yan Beiqing personally served a bowl of sour plum soup and handed it to Mo Shanghua. Then he continued to hand over the green plum and opened his mouth with a smile. Mo Shanghua took sour plum soup with a smile and took a sip of it. It doesn't seem that Qinya made it. Yan Beiqing's eyebrows and eyes suddenly flew a little proud. If he had a tail, he would have gone up to the sky. It's natural. It's for my husband to cook for you. Seeing this, Mo Shanghua put sour plum soup in front of him and said, "No wonder the taste is so strange. You have to taste it yourself." When Yan Beiqing saw this, he didn't believe it. He drank half a bowl of sour plum soup at one go. As soon as he was about to boast, his face became strange and he couldn't say a word. The flower on the street saw this, couldn't help but cover lip to smile. "Wei, how?" Yan Beiqing quietly put away his proud look and gathered the sour plum soup in his own direction. He never mentioned that it was made by himself. He pointed to the green plum and said, "This is what I picked from Linqing early in the morning. I don't believe it's not to your taste." However, in view of what happened just now, he picked up one and tasted it himself. It's really a famous green plum. It's really sour and astringent. Yan Beiqing's handsome face is almost distorted. The flower on the street, Poof Chi, came out with a smile, and the tears that covered her stomach almost squeezed out. Yan Beiqing just chewed a mouthful, and then he couldn't bear it. He forced himself to swallow it, and then he looked at the flower with a bitter face. "Emoa, I've tasted it for you. It's really sour and acerbic. It should suit your appetite." "Who told you I was sour?" Mo Shanhua's fetuses are nearly 3 months old, and she is still in good spirits. "You want Qinya to make sour plum soup for you every day. Is it sour?" Yan Beiqing was puzzled. Unfortunately, Qinya is not here at this time. If not, he will ask Qinya directly. One side has always, and in the heart sigh, if Qinya is not here today, he will not volunteer to cook flowers for me. Mo Shanghua lies back on the beauty couch again. Wen Yan just lazily raises her eyebrows and says, "You didn't ask me to drink those tonic soup every day a while ago. I'm very tired of it. This sour plum soup is refreshing and delicious. I naturally like it." After a pause, she took her lips and gave a smile. She used to caress her belly. "However, I like spicy things a bit." Yen North City handsome face just collapsed down. Smell speech eye is a bright again. "You mean maybe a daughter?" Said, gather up to want to personally across the belly of Mo Shanghua to listen to. Mo Shanghua pushed him away some, face black line. "Now less than 3 months, how can you see men and women? Both men and women, I will cherish it as a treasure." Yan Beiqing's face remained unchanged, and his face was solemn. Mo Shanghua then laughed again, especially warm in her heart. "However, I hope to be a daughter. I don't know why. I just like my daughter." She only remembered part of the things in her dream, and after thinking about them for a long time, she still knew little about them. Ning knows that the box she sent still can't be opened, and she is not entangled. She takes it out of the palace and locks it in the box. The dream never happened again, and the scene in the dream seems to fade away. However, these are no longer important. In her heart, she had already thought that what should happen could never escape, and she had to let it go. The most important thing now is to enjoy the present. In this world where men are superior and women are inferior, Yan Beiqing is an alien. It is enough to hold him in the palm of your hand, treasure her and love her. What she is most looking forward to now is this little life. If she is a daughter, she must be lovely. Yan Beiqing clenched the hand of Mo Shanghua, 10 fingers clasped, the other hand gently stroked her abdomen, full of face doting. Emoer said it was her daughter. The daughter over there is good, little guy. You have to listen, your mother likes her daughter. If she is born a bastard, it's better to educate you as a father. Mo Shanghua smiles and pats his hand. Nonsense. Yan Beiqing's smile did not decrease, and his eyes on the flowers were gentle to the extreme. I don't talk nonsense. Your wish is my wish. Mo Shanghua stands up with a smile and leans in his arms, holding her fingers tightly. At the moment, their hearts seem to be filled with something, and their happiness is beyond words. In the outer courtyard at this time, Qinya took the cake made by herself and walked briskly towards Mo Ling. Brother Mo, wait for me. Mo Ling was dressed in a black and skillful military uniform, holding a long sword in his hand. When he heard Qinya's voice, he stopped and turned around. There was a slight emotional fluctuation on his wooden and expressionless face. Qinya is happy in her heart. She is about to step forward, but her arm is suddenly stopped by Qin Lin, who comes out of nowhere. After entering the barracks, Qin Lin had a lot of strength, and now Qinya couldn't step out. Brother, why do you have time to come back today? Don't you still need to practice in the army? Qinya looks back at Qin Lin in surprise. At present, the Imperial Guards are reorganized, and Mo Zhang's identity as the adopted son of Prince Lian is not hidden. So Yan Zhenxuan wants him to stay in the capital temporarily, reorganize the Imperial Guards, and recruit some new recruits by the way. Qin Lin, as a pioneer, is directly appointed as a coach. He should be in the barracks now. My brother cares about you, so he comes back to see you. Qin Lin quickly glanced at Mo Ling, who was less than 3 meters away, with a resolute face and a serious mouth. Qinya took a look at Qin Lin and Mo Ling. She pulled out her hand decisively. Brother, wait for me. I'll give this cake to Brother Mo and come back right away. Not far away, Mo Ling will listen to Qinya's words clearly, lips slightly raised, a very shallow radian, step over. Qinya bit her lower lip and gently laughed. She was about to come forward with her food box. However, Qin Lin pulled her directly behind him this time. Qin Linxing is very strong, and directly blocks Qinya's whole life behind him. The joy that just surged up is almost extinguished. Brother, what are you doing? My brother has something very important to tell you. Go with him first. Qin Lin's eyes flashed, took the food box in Qinya's hand, turned around and threw it to Mo Ling without expression, and then pulled Qinya away. Mo Ling holds the food box in both hands and looks at Qin Lin and Qinya's back. The whole person is completely confused on the spot. The wood-like expressionless face is finally split with a hint of consternation. Qinya also turns back frequently, but she can't resist her elder brother, so she can only look away with Mo Ling. How can my brother protect his sister like this? Mo Ling is holding the food box in his hand, and he is quite depressed. Crane, when shall we get married? As soon as Nanha had practiced his sword and had a rest, Hua Qianlu came over. Nanha just swallowed the tea in his mouth, and all of it was taken down by Hua Qian's elegant face. Hua Qianlu wiped the water stains on her face, and the light in her eyes didn't disappear at all. Baorong Emperor is like today's lingering sick bed, so is the Empress Dowager. If we don't hurry up, it will be 3 years before we want to get married. During the period of national mourning, any marriage or funeral among the people should be shelved. At the thought of this, Hua Qianlu was upset and continued. If we catch up with Emperor Baorong and the Empress Dowager and die together, won't our marriage be extended for a longer time? Crane, we must get married soon. South Crane will be shocked down in the heart, poured a cup of tea for himself again, without squinting the mouth. So, then 3 years later in the discussion. Flower Thousand Willow, a handsome face suddenly collapsed. This how can? Nanha picked up the Tibetan sword that had just been placed on the table. The sword god reflected the cold light in the sunlight, but she was used to it. She took it in her hand and played with it gently. The corner of her eye glanced at Hui Qianliu. When your martial arts can catch up with me, I will promise you. The cold light reflected on Nanha's cheek. Hui Qianli silently swallowed his saliva, stood up and walked back. I thought about it. In fact, it doesn't matter whether I get married or not. As long as you and my heart are together, it's okay. There are still some things to deal with in the pavilion, so I'll go back first. As soon as the words fell, the sword in the hand of Nan, he stood in front of his chest. The things in the pavilion are taken care of every day. What else do you want to do? Flower Willow quickly changed face, flattering smile. Yes, I forgot. Nan, he is arrogant and can't rub a grain of sand seriously. Therefore, Hua Qianlu has long been eager to find the best person in the building to take care of the affairs in Qinghuan. He only needs to visit the building twice a month. He can't stay in the building anymore. In the eyes of the South Crane, a satisfied look appeared. The delicate jaw was raised gently. Then I will practice sword with you. This can't be used. Hua Qianlu immediately shook her head like a rattle, but Nan he couldn't help breaking up and attacked directly. Hua Qianlu had no choice but to resist. However, although his kung fu was not weak, he was not as good as Nanha, and soon he was defeated. Hua Qianlu struggled to resist the fierce attack of the South Crane, while wailing constantly in his heart. How did Yan Beicheng practice such evil? He didn't mean to let it go, he did. He couldn't beat it. Everything is thriving only in the palace at this time. Yan Zhenxuan now has to live in the palace again. Baorong Emperor was seriously ill. He went to read the memorial every day, and then he had to read it for him. Today, he was very busy until late at night. Originally, his agreement with Yan Beicheng was to only help Yan Beicheng in the imperial court. Yan Beicheng was responsible for the throne, but in the end, everything was going too fast. He didn't have time to help, so it was a foregone conclusion. Until recently, he just knew that Yan Beicheng didn't want the throne from the beginning. Mo Shanghua once thought so, but her longing for Yan Beicheng was also heard. In addition, he hated and rejected the royal family. From the beginning, he just wanted revenge, just wanted Baorong Emperor to regret. Third prince and others are not enough. Yan Zhenxuan heart is more unwilling, or had to accept the appointment of Baorong Emperor. Your Highness, it's time to rest. An internal servant came forward at this time and gently reminded him. I see. Yan Zhenxuan rubbed his temple a little tired and stood up. Just walked a footstep, suddenly feel some head heavy, then, the whole person will not be controlled. A head fell to the ground. Your Highness, Your Highness. The internal servant was shocked and turned pale. Imperial Doctor, please come to see the Imperial Doctor. Prince and Princess, the 13th prince fell ill last night. Today, the royal doctor went to treat him. He said that he had made the old disease again. One dark guard told the news from the palace today. Mo Shanghua and Yan Beicheng looked at each other and frowned tightly. Yan North City Sword Eyebrow Tai Tsiu asked the most important question, what's the situation in the palace? The ministers headed by Lu Xiang are kneeling outside the Yangxin Hall, asking His Majesty to reconsider the candidates for the reserve. The Dark Way says truthfully. The flower eyebrows on the street are beating. I'm afraid things are developing in an uncontrollable direction. I immediately ask, which prince did the ministers recommend? To the princess, all the ministers recommend the Lord. Dark Way slightly paused for a while, just Wei. Yan Beicheng has thoroughly proved his ability in the case of Yan Moli. The rest of the princes have been suppressed by Yan Moli for many years, and they have not become the best candidates at all. Mo Shanghua's premonitions suddenly came true. Her red lips pursed slightly, and her heart filled with an unspeakable emotion. You go down first. Yan North City orders that person to go down, turn round to spend tight frown on the Mo to smooth, but in the heart not happy? Mo Shanghua did not open her mouth, but the tight corners of her lips showed her unhappiness in her heart. Everything had settled down. Originally, they should have lived a stable life now, but they still had sudden changes. Yan Beicheng was also a little unhappy, but he still habitually hid his emotions in his heart and held the hand of Mo Shanghua tightly. Don't worry, I won't do what they want. Now, I just want to live a stable and peaceful life with you. Emotionwa's uneasy heart was calm. She looked down at her belly and said in a soft voice, I just don't want our children to live in such a bloody environment from their urine. After a pause, she said, it's more selfish. If you sit in that position, you can't help doing a lot of things. I didn't care if there were women in your mansion in the past, but now, I just want to occupy you alone. Yen Beiqing smiles and gently pinches her nose. Her eyes are full of spoiling color. You can rest assured that you will be the only woman in my life. The frowning brow of the flower on the street stretched out. Then how do you plan to deal with those ministers? I think I should go to see Yen Zhenchuan now. Yen Beiqing's smile faded, and his face became calm. I'm with you. Mo Shanghua immediately replied, and was afraid that Yen Beiqing would not agree. He explained, I have medical skills, and I can help when I go. Besides, I don't take medicine for myself. It doesn't have any effect on my children. You can rest assured. Yen North City refused words haven't had time to say. Mo Shanghua has found so many reasons he naturally can't refuse, can only helplessly promise down. Heart is more firm, sure to take her in this life smooth and happy. Your Highness took the medicine that hurt his health all the year round in the early years, and his health has been damaged. Although he was brought back to health some days ago, he was too tired these days, and now his old disease has recurred. It can take more than 1 year or less than half a year to recover. Lu Zheng had already had a pulse for Yen Zhenchuan. At the moment, he saw flowers coming from the street of Yen Beiqing. He told them about his illness one by one. The eyebrows on the street suddenly twisted. Ibao Rongdi's condition now, I'm afraid it won't last for half a month. The emperor can't hang in the air all the year round. I'll see. Mo Shanghua pinched the palm of her hand and walked towards the inner room. Yen Zhenchuan is still in a coma at the moment. He has a pretty face that is as warm as jade. At the moment he is pale and almost dead. His forehead is sweating slightly and his brow is frowning. He seems to be in a nightmare. You can't wake up at will in the nightmare. The flower on the street thinks about it a little. Without much attention, she directly pulls his wrist to feel his pulse. Repeated diagnosis of several times, and Lu Zheng said the results are almost the same. Yen Zhenchuan's body, in addition to the root cause of the disease, is the perennial use of adverse drugs in the body. The damage caused by the body is lifelong. If you do nothing, just rest for 2 or 3 years, maybe you can recover. However, he was born in the royal identity, he is doomed to live in peace. How? Yen Beiqing's low voice sounded behind the flowers on the street. Flowers on the road, lips light pursed, silent. As he was about to pull out his hand between Yen Zhenchuan's wrists and get up to leave, Yen Zhenchuan closed his eyes tightly, and his pale lips spat out very light words. Qian, you're back, Qian. Don't mention the flowers on the street. Yen Beiqing's face turned black in an instant. He forcefully broke Yen Zhenchuan's hand and took back his wife's hand. Never thought, this action is like stimulation to the sleepy Yen Zhenchuan. He suddenly opened his eyes. The first one that came into view was the beautiful cheek of Mo Shanghua. He said subconsciously, Qian. Yen Beiqing directly pulled Mo Shanghua behind him, and then he faced Yen Zhenchuan with a smile. Brother Shizenwang is not sleeping. How can you look at your sister-in-law's nonsense? All things, as long as it's about Mo Shanghua, Yen Beiqing is extremely concerned. If Yen Zhenchuan is poured down by a basin of cold water, all his limbs and bones are cold. There is a touch of melancholy in his eyes, and the bright eyes restore the dead silence. I'm confused. I'm sorry. Sister Huang. Yen Zhenchuan forced himself to smile apologetically, and his pale lips spoke softly. Just 2 words, then I coughed uncontrollably. Busy with a waiter to pass a glass of warm water, carefully he picked up. Yen Zhenchuan took the warm water, but he didn't drink it. After a long sleep, his lips dried up and his voice was hoarse, but he still kept up his spirits. I didn't mean to. I just fell into a nightmare. Please don't blame me. As for the fact that he had just caught a hand in his sleep, he had no impression at all. Yen Beicheng was still deeply impressed by the situation. A pair of secluded pupils were a little dark inside. He said in a cold voice, "Even in sleep, you should not touch other people's hands at will." What? Yen Zhenxuan was caught unprepared by Yen Beicheng's words, and his face was at a loss. When speaking, it is to cover chest to cough lightly again. Mo Xianghua only felt that Yen Beicheng was lovely and funny. He quickly pulled him aside and explained casually, "It's not a big deal that you just grabbed your brother's hand when you were in a coma. There's no need to tangle." Clear. Listen to Mo Xianghua unexpectedly such explanation. Yen Beicheng eyebrows immediately wrinkled up. "Just want to explain," was her eyes warning stare back. Obediently shut up. Mo Xianghua knows the bitterness in Hua Qianlio's heart, and thanks to the original owner, she naturally won't tangle in such things. She is just afraid that Yen Beicheng will be jealous forever. Yen Zhenxuan's smell speech, in the heart also didn't doubt. See Yen Beicheng's eyes more sorry. "Sorry brother, I really don't have what consciousness, if not Huang saw remind, I just don't know it." Yen North City cold a handsome face, almost from the teeth out of the two words, "No harm." Mo Xianghua glanced at him helplessly and held his hand quietly to comfort him. Yen Beicheng was as cold as the face thrown into the iceberg. Then he warmed up a little and clenched her hand. Yen Zhenxuan Yuguang took a look at the hand they held tightly. He quickly looked away and looked at Lu Zheng. "Dr. Lu, cough, how long have I been in a coma, and how about my body now, how long can I take care of myself?" Lu Zheng heard the speech and pondered for a moment. He still told the truth. At last he told him, "It's autumn now, and winter is coming soon. If your highness wants to take care of him, he has to pay more attention than before." Yen Zhenxuan knew his illness, but he was silent and lowered his eyes slightly. After all, his body is too useless. Yen Zhenxuan raised his head and looked at the sticky flower in front of Yen Beicheng. He tried not to fix his eyes on the flower. Just looking at their love, he knew that he had no interest in that position. "I'm sorry, brother Wu Huang and sister Huang. My body may delay you." Yen Zhenxuan sighed, and the corners of his lips pulled out a radiance of self-mockery. "It's also that I haven't paid attention to my body in this period of time, otherwise it won't be like this." Yen Beicheng's eyes were cold and silent, and his emotions were complex. He didn't want to see such unexpected things. "It's not your fault. At the moment, you just need to take good care of yourself. Under such circumstances, your brother and I will deal with everything for the time being." The stranger knew that this matter was extremely difficult, but he still comforted him in a low voice. "It's really impossible. Your brother really had to go that way. This matter should not be regarded as a bad thing." With that, she pulled the corners of her lips and opened her mouth in a relaxed tone. Yen Beicheng only felt the pain in his heart. He held the hand of Mo Xianghua tightly and said in a low voice, "It doesn't matter. There will always be a solution." Seeing this, Yen Zhenxuan felt more guilty. He can't do anything. It's useless for him to make such a mistake while waiting. Especially looking at the flower on the street forced to smile, his heart is also a pain. Even if he can only match his sister-in-law day by day, even if he knows that the soul in the body is no longer the original person, how can he look at this familiar face without any fluctuation in his heart? Think of here, his two hands can't help slowly tightening, the brocade is all around by his clenched full of folds. Why did God give him such a body? The flowers on the street seemed to see Yen Zhenxuan strange, the thin eyebrows slightly frown. 13 Emperor younger brother. Many things are decided by heaven. Human can't change, but you can change your mood, don't want to be trapped in it. The place that had dried up and cracked in his heart seemed to be moistened by the sweet spring. Yen Zhenxuan slowly loosened his hand and forced out a smile. It was like this. His eyebrows and eyes were still warm and soft, as warm as the spring breeze. Lu Weng came to me just after I came out of the street. Lu Weng has been in the palace for more than 10 years. He always talks with people. When he meets Yan Beiqing, who is being elected by the officials, an old face suddenly smiles like a chrysanthemum. "I've seen your Royal Highness and Princess Yu." There was no need for Yan Beiqing to disguise himself in front of his eyes. His face was as cool as an ice sculpture. He just nodded his head to show his pardon. Only in the face of flowers, his face will soften down, will be the gentle and considerate, and always try to make her happy husband. However, Emo Shanghua is also a quiet character, and will not speak actively unless necessary. Lu Wing had never seen Yan Beiqing like this before. He thought about it in his heart, and his smile became more brilliant. "Your Highness, Your Majesty told you to go to Yangxin Palace immediately. This is the new emperor in the future." Naturally, he did not dare to neglect him. "It's time to come." Emo Shanghua sighs in her heart, and her eyes are silent. Yan Beiqing took the hand of Emo Shanghua, thin lips, light enunciation, "Son Minister, lead the purpose." Finish saying, then direct lead Emo Shanghua, stride to leave. Lu Weng looked at Yanbei City, where he left with great strides in front of him, and sighed incomparably in his heart. The world is changeable. Who would have thought that the son who used to be the most disliked son of Emperor Barong is now his most outstanding son? On the contrary, he is the candidate for the crown prince expected by the important officials. When Yan Beiqing and Emo Shanghua arrived at Yangxin Hall, they saw the ministers kneeling in front of the hall. Barong Emperor's body is getting weaker and weaker. He hasn't gone to court for half a month. Yan Zhenxuan falls ill again at this time. There are many ways to find out Yan Zhenxuan's illness. At this time, I'm afraid all the officials will know. So they all gathered here for one purpose. That is to force Barong Emperor to establish a crown prince. This matter is of great importance. In addition to the important ministers of the 3rd grade and above, the officials of the 4th and 5th grade also knelt here. Although it's autumn, today's sun is full, and it's in the middle of the day. The officials are wearing heavy official clothes and pipe caps. Naturally, they are extremely hot. They are all sweating, but they still refuse to leave. Among them, some may be loyal officials, others may be people who are at the helm of the wind, or they may want to seek some interests in them. And the most let Emo Shanghua feel false is kneeling in the head of officials Lu Bohan. Hua Qianlu traced the plot with General Chen for Lu Bohan. She knew it for a long time. Now she saw him kneeling here again and asked Barong Emperor to establish Yanbei City as the reserve. Isn't it a great irony? It's ridiculous. In my heart, I really hate it. The flower in the street just glances at Lu Bohan, and then walks by without paying any attention to her plan. Lu Bohan, however, did not know what kind of mentality he was out of. He raised his head and said in a loud voice, "Princess Yu, please stay." Look, what's the purpose of such a polite tone? The flower on the street keeps on walking with Yan Beiqing. If in the past, Lu Bohan's old face must have been lost. But today, in the presence of civil and military officials, Lu Bohan, a father with an old face, once again called out, "If you have something to talk with Princess Yu, please let her stay." Lu Bohan has always attached great importance to his face, but now he is willing to give up his old face, which gives the stranger a little interest. She would like to see what makes Lu Bohan so willing to face. Thinking of this, Emo Shanghua turned around and said, "What does Lu Xiang have to say?" Lu wanted to get up and talk, but he had been kneeling all morning. He was in his 40s. This morning, his knees were aching and very weak, and he couldn't get up for a moment. Emo Shanghua looks coldly, and doesn't have the slightest intention to help. Seeing this, Lu Wen quickly called 2 attendants, one on the left and the other on the right, to help Lu Bohan up. Many of the officials quietly raised their eyes, and they had already made up their mind. It seems that Lu Bohan's father has no weight in the heart of Princess Yu, or perhaps the future queen. Therefore, in order to deal with Lu Bohan, we have to think more about it. How could Lu Bohan not know what was going on in the hearts of all the people? He was also ashamed, but he didn't show any respect on his face. He didn't look like a half-father. "Princess Yu, please move here." Emo Shanghua nodded and was about to step forward, but Yen Beiqing held her hand and gently twisted her eyebrows. There was a little worry in her eyes. What can Lu Bohan do in front of civil and military officials? Mo Shanghua is clear in his heart. He pinches Yen Beiqing's palm and smiles at him, indicating that he can rest assured. Yen North City, this just let go oneself, then turned round to enter to raise the Heart Temple. Now he is in the Imperial Palace, and Lu Bohan is inconvenient to go far, so he finds a quite open place under the main hall. This kind of emptiness is not afraid that the walls have ears. Mo Shanghua naturally understands the deep meaning, which also makes Qinya stand a little far away from Mo Ling, who is always with her now. I heard that the princess is pregnant now? Lu Bohan opened his mouth, but did not express his conjecture directly. Instead, he asked about the body of flowers in the street. Mo Shanghua subconsciously raised her hand and gently stroked her abdomen. She nodded indifferently. Please worry about the Prime Minister. Now she is really pregnant in March. Lu Bohan's face actually showed a bit of satisfaction, so, I will rest assured, did not expect that Lu Bohan's lifetime can also see his grandson was born. The corner of Flower's lips on the street raised a radiant of sarcasm and said impolitely, if what I remember is right, what Lu Xiang cares most about is his declared status. How come now he also thinks of his grandson? Lu Bohan's face froze, but he was a bit ashamed behind him. Qian, I've been thinking about it for a long time. No matter what happened in the past, it's me who's a father. I'm sorry for you. After a pause, he sighed as if he was tens of years old. I'm at this age and I have few children. Now I just want to be reunited at home. I used to do something wrong. I'm willing to make up for it with everything. As long as you recognize my father and let your child call me grandfather. Such a sincere and old look. If the original owner, already soft-hearted, immediately will try to forgive this growing old father. But Mo Shanghua and Lu Bohan did not have the slightest feeling. His words only made her feel ironic. Her beautiful face was frozen, and her voice was frozen. Lu Xiang, I have already told you that I am no longer Lu Qian. In a short sentence, it was a response to Lu Bohan. Lu Bohan's old face was completely stiff, and there were millions of long speeches in his stomach. Now he was choked by Shengxing and couldn't speak for a moment. Knowing Lu Bohan's intention, Mo Shanghua has no intention to stay and turns around. Stop! Lu Bohan saw the flowers on the road to go, quickly stopped her. Mo Shanghua's steps pause a little, but he doesn't look back. His voice is indifferent. Lu Xiangrua still wants to say these sour words to try to move me, so I don't have to say them. I have said that you have been cut off from you for a long time, and there is no connection in the future. Lu Bohan heard the speech, but he didn't care about his old face. He stopped in front of the flower on the street and said, even if it's your mother's face, you should listen to me finish this sentence. The irony in the flower eyes on the street is more intense. I don't know, Lu Xiang can even use dead people as chips now. Lu Bohan felt a little ashamed, but he was soon replaced by a stronger purpose in his heart. Well, you don't recognize my father, but what can I do for my age? After a pause, he said, I'm a father. Please, even if you don't recognize me, you should persuade your Highness King Yu. This time, you must seize the opportunity. Originally, this is the real purpose. Mo Shanghua knows Lu Bohan's purpose in an instant, but he stops on purpose. He has some doubts in his eyes. What's the chance to grasp? What do you mean by that? Lu Bohan finally became interested in Mo Shanghua. He felt a little happy and said in a low voice, naturally, he became the prince while his 13th Highness was seriously ill. Qian, it's not my selfish intention. Just think about it. If he ascends the throne, you will be the queen under one person and above 10,000 people. You will have whatever power, fame and wealth you want. These are the most beneficial things for you. Fearing that Hua Hui would not agree, Lu Bohan continued to lure him into saying, I'm a prime minister now. If you sit on the queen, what else can I get besides having light on my face? Qian, father, it's all for you, every word, said so true, but the more you listen to the flowers, the colder you feel. He was really a good father who thought about her. He didn't forget to give her advice at this time. Seeing that Emo Shanghua did not speak, Lu Bohan thought that she was moved and continued. The most important thing is that King Yu is devoted to you now, and your life will surely be very smooth in the future. As long as you can recognize your ancestors and return to your ancestors, I will not ask for anything else. You are so righteous. Emo Shanghua couldn't stand Lu Bohan's face, and the sarcastic color on her face was no longer covered up. Let me think about how much glory a family can bring to a queen. Lu Bohan's face was stiff. He was about to explain, but he didn't give him a chance at all. He continued to count. For one thing, this family will become a family of relatives, which is also half of the royal family. For these two things, with King Yu's love for me, I can ask for wind and wind, rain and rain. Naturally, this family will also ask for wind and wind. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.